Or they were supposed to.
Oh, really?
I'm not sure.
Hmm.
And honestly, I haven't even gotten her to look at it.
I just noticed.
Coming back. There's two on that messy weather. Like 10. Yesterday afternoon.
Oh, okay.
Hey there, how are you? I'm here.
I'm glad I made somebody.
That's not a real accomplishment, man.
I had all my stuff out and ready to go, and had a customer come in the door. Took off. Somebody.
Are we?
You always get that last minute call, always, before you leave.
Well, they had two signs that needed a copy. You'll see oysters, clams. There's two of them. Is there? I drive by there all the time. I just never noticed.
That's okay. Oh, no, I found it. Never mind, I got it.
Let's go here. It's pretty smart. Yeah, it's already got me connected in the whole manual. It's just stuff we need to have in connection to. Just
Just so you know, we're asking for
I don't tell.
to be continued to next week. They need deviation, so the next day is what they're
I bet. Slow me down here.
Are we good to go? Okay. All right. Let me grab a printed agenda.
So we set for a 4.
Yes, we're good.
Okay. We call the February 22nd, 2017 Design Review Board meeting to order. And we'll start off with any announcements from the staff.
Yeah, good afternoon. Tim Brown with Planning and Development Services. We, I think, handed out the memo. Circle K, the applicant is asking that this be continued to the March 1st meeting, or March 2nd meeting, rather. They've had some difficulty gathering information or getting information from Circle K on this sign, so it's not ready to go tonight.
Okay. Anything else from the staff?
That's the only announcement. Thank you.
Yes, there is one other announcement. Mr. David Bailey has been moved from the Realtor seat to the Design Professional seat for this board.
Excellent.
To help ensure that we'll have a quorum, including one design professional. And so, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Okay, next item on the agenda is considerations of the prior meeting minutes, which I believe were distributed some time ago. This would be the January 5th meeting. Do you have any comments, questions, or concerns? I'll entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's properly
Mr.
moved.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
there was no vote for continuing the Circle K to
Oh,
the
I
March
figured-
2nd meeting.
Okay, it's on the agenda. I figured we'd do it when we got to it on the agenda. If we need to do it now, we can.
Either's fine.
However you want to do it. I mean, typically we do it up front in case someone's here. They don't have to wait till the item comes up.
Okay, very good. Well, since I've got a motion and a second on the floor, let's dispose of the minutes really quickly, and then we'll get to that item. Thank you, Tim.
Yep. Got another question.
Any question on the minutes? Nope. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, Tim, so do you have anything in addition to...
No, we kind of advertised it prematurely because I've been talking with the sign company, and the sign company thought they were going to have the information, but they still don't have it from Circle K. So without the information, we really can't proceed. So that's why we're it's really the applicant and staff is requesting that it be continued to the March 2nd meeting.
Okay, would you mind just putting that in the form of a recommended motion so we can, if you want to read out the...
Move the Circle K building sign to the March 2nd DRB meeting.
All right.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Kim.
Well, since we're dealing with that now, we have a memo about the Culver's Restaurant building sign being continued. The Circle K actually was in our packet, the continuation request. This is the one we have. Do we need to dispense of it now, or?
Yes, sorry, I forgot that one was going to be continued as well. Because we know, like I say, I know we normally want to do it up front in case anyone's waiting to hear that item. What happened is Culver's doesn't customize their signs. They have 3 sizes, and that's it. So the original one they submitted was too big. It exceeds our standards. And they didn't want to do a deviation because I said, well, either you change the sign or you request a deviation. They're like, well, we really don't want to do the deviation. So they went to the smallest sign, a little over 8 square feet. Well, I guess they kept hounding the corporate headquarters, and finally Culver's gave in and said, okay, fine, we'll let you customize the sign. So this was after we advertised the 8 square foot sign. So that leaves us to where we need to continue this to next week, because we did advertise the new sign for next week. That ad's already been to the paper, and I think it came out last week I guess it comes out tomorrow.
And are we dealing with the monument sign tonight? Or
Yes,
is
the
that
monument
continued
sign.
as
The
well?
monument sign's ready to move forward.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, we are requesting that the Culver's building sign also be continued to the March 2nd DRB meeting.
Okay, anyone want to put that in the form of a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, any other continuations or, all right, in that case, the items to be heard tonight, the first one up on the agenda is the Fayard Mini Storage Flagpole Deviation, and I want to note for the record that we have what appears to be 2 letters, 2 emails from members of the public. Staff, how should we best handle those? Are those considered entered into the record since they're in our packets? Or?
Yes, they are.
Okay. In that case, staff, do you have a presentation?
Yes, this item was continued from the January 5th meeting. The only 2 other places that I'm aware, and of course I don't drive 98 every day, Water Sound on the north side of 98 was approved for more than 1 flagpole. I don't know the name of the church, but there's a church down there near Regional Utilities.
I believe they're grandfathered.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
Maybe.
going to get to that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tim. I'm sorry.
Those do predate the code. They've been there for quite a long time, but they have, I don't know the exact number. There's at least 10 there, maybe more. There's, I think, 2 big ones and then some smaller ones. Other than that, I'm not aware. That doesn't mean there aren't more out there, but I'm not aware that there's anywhere else along 98 that has more than 1. So their request is to have 3 total. I did speak to the TDC because we talked quite a bit at the last meeting about a South Walton flag, and the TDC's logo is proprietary, so they wouldn't allow someone to make a flag of it. So, I mean, they could still ask for a corporate flag or some other type of flag, but it can't be the Beaches of South Walton because that, I don't know that it's trademarked, but it's proprietary and the TDC is not going to allow anyone else to utilize it. So that's the request. They want 3 flagpoles, and we did go ahead and advertise that they wanted a Beaches of South Walton flag because that was in their request, so we wanted to make sure we were okay, so we did advertise that. However, that's not an option. The TDC is not going to allow that. So I'll entertain any questions you may have.
Is the applicant present? Yes, sir. Would you like to make any statements?
I'm Ron Cloverth with Dynamic Products, representing the John Fayard Self-Storage Facility. Before I address the application before you, I would first like to apologize for my behavior before y'all at the last meeting in December. I let my frustrations get the better of me. I think sometimes this political climate we're in makes us say things we don't really mean, but I live in Walton County. I live in South Walton County, and I believe in the spirit and intent of the scenic corridor guidelines, if not with every individual application. And I understand there's going to be a rub there, especially when I'm vested in the sign industry. So again, I apologize if I was disrespectful to the board. At this time, I'd like to bring up Mary Lindberg, who is the leader for the John Fayard management team here. We have some other information we'd like to share with you. We have the 40-foot American flag. We want to put the state of Florida flag. That flagpole is 40 feet. We want to do a 35-foot pole with the state of Florida flag. We suggested doing some sort of South Walton recognition. However, in Gulfport, if you don't mind, can we approach you and share this picture here? We have a sign a flag that just says welcome. Red and blue and just says welcome, and we're certainly amenable to doing that. As far as the two letters or emails, we had no protest from the adjoining neighbors, the adjoining property owners, and I guess we've had two letters of protest out of 58,000 residents in Walton County. So I hope you would take that into consideration. This, Mr. Fayard's goal is to make all his places look all the same. It's a branding, marketing thing. In Gulfport, he has a huge monument sign with a full color LED. And obviously, I explained to him, we certainly couldn't do that here. And he was amenable to that. I would just ask that you take into consideration the size of the project. It's a 100,000 square foot building, almost 500 foot of road frontage. I don't think personally that 3 flagpoles out there is going to overpower the streetscape. Some of the points made in the letters about we're going to have a proliferation of 3 flagpoles on sites, I think I agree with Mr. Bailey's comment at the December meeting that these applications need to be taken individually and consider the scale of the project. Is it worthy of something that requires a deviation? So with that said, I'll answer any questions if we can.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And one other point,
yes,
if I may.
Yes, sir.
One of these people comments about how can we regulate the size of the flag. The size of the flag, 2 points I want to make. The size of the flag is most often determined by the size and strength of the flagpole. A flagpole can only hold a certain size flag. Right now we have an 8x12 American flag of that. That's the largest flag that flagpole can hold, because it just creates, especially as all the wind we've been having recently. In fact, a flag will only last 3 months. They have to be replaced every 3 months because of the amount of wind. Now, you do allow for 3 flags on 1 pole. So I guess we could take the American flag down, make it smaller, and figure out the math in the wind load configurations and have 3 flags up there. That is allowed in your code. So I would ask, what's the difference in having 3 flags on 1 pole versus 3 poles with 1 flag each?
It's a very good point, Mark.
If I could answer that, size of flags.
Yep, that's true.
Yep.
I'm having to go through the flag thing now, and I've studied flags and the cost of flagpoles and wind resistance, and I mean, your statement of a 40-foot flag that's high wind rated, 8x12 is exactly correct. And the code does allow for up to 3 flags. It calls out always has to have, if I'm not mistaken, the American flag at the top, and the Florida flag, and another approved by this board. And I don't think there are any blanket approvals that I saw in, Tim, correct me, or Mac, I saw that had been pre-approved. I would have concerns with a third flag saying welcome. I don't think that says anything.
Well, we're open
We're
to.
open
Yeah,
to, what,
we're-
you know, any suggestions. I mean, we're here to promote the community. I mean, we want to work with the community. We have a conference room, community room in our building that we allow nonprofits to use free of charge, kind of to give back to the community, you know, for allowing us to do business here. I mean, we're working with it's a South Walton Community Council. They've used it. The sheriff's office has been here and you know are using it. You know, we want to work with you. We want to be part of your community.
I remember that one of the questions that we were asking at the previous meeting was, how far apart were you wanting to put the flags? Were they going to be stretched across? I noticed in this photograph that we're looking at that they look like they're on like a pad,
Yes.
like a concrete pad, and that they're
Yes.
all three fairly close together.
I'm trying to recall the specs. I'm going to say they're 15 feet because the 8-foot by 12-foot flag, if it's in line, the wind's blowing, we don't want it hitting the other flagpole. So
Right.
I would say they're 15 feet apart, and there will be a concrete pad running the length of that area.
Okay.
Yes.
And you have the American flag being the tallest one, and then
40
the other
foot
two being
and
shorter.
235s. Yes, ma'am.
We'll work with any type of flag. I mean, you know,
Well, you have the American flag up there now, right?
we do.
And
We
it looks
do.
very nice. It looks very nice.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Do we have anybody interested?
I have a question, just a technical question. Based on not just our code, but I guess Reed versus Gilbert was a Supreme Court case that came down that affected sign code across the entire country. How much control, if any, do we have over the content? I'm assuming a flag is considered a sign. How can we control at all legally what goes on a flagpole? Other than, I know now we can, the current code, because we have one flag allowed and it's the American flag, and I don't think anybody has a problem with somebody flying the American flag. But beyond that, what control?
Well,
do
your
we
sign code has to be content neutral. There's not just this Supreme Court case, but there's been other court cases that has to be content neutral. It didn't reference flags specifically, but I think you're in the same area. It would be what's on the flag in terms of text. It still has to be content neutral. So the actual flag, I don't think, does anything one way or the other, unless it's considered obscene for some reason. But any text that's on it still has to be content neutral. Because basically if it's text, it's a sign. If there is no text, I mean, it gets more technical. If there's a picture, it could still be a sign. I mean, it can get really technical. But I think with a flag, in and of itself, it's not a sign. But when you start putting text on it, or logos, a corporate logo or other type of logo, then you can certainly argue that now it's a sign. But in terms of, we can't really regulate, not legally, you can't really regulate content because this has got to be content neutral.
I'm going to jump in too. Your concern is a valid one, Lee, and it's something that we'll have to address with the scenic corridor standards and probably other sections of the code as well. But for now, we have the code that we have, so I think that you guys should apply it as written, and we'll worry about the implications of the Reed versus Gilbert case later. But it's a valid point. It's something that the county is going to have to address.
But I think my concern with that
I
is
know.
that we're being asked to approve something outside of our code, our current code.
That's right, for
So-
deviation, which is allowed under the code.
Correct, absolutely. But I wonder if we get off into, maybe not, if you think that.
Well, I think the issue here is they're coming forward with a request. As long as, we're going by their request, we're not really violating the spirit of any First Amendment principles. So if we're just considering their request, I think we're okay. If we, start regulating the content of what they're asking to put up, that might be an issue. But
That's my point.
And as we stated before, we're perfectly willing to submit designs for approval. We're looking to be a good neighbor in the community.
sorry. I was going to ask real quickly. So I guess for the third sign, besides the state of Florida and American, you just want something that's community oriented?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's why we were suggesting something to do with South of Walton, just to promote, our area. And I don't know, what we can work out on that.
Tell you what I feel comfortable with right now is that we know the American flag is approved to fly, and it's there and it's flying on a 40-foot mast, which is the tallest allowed, and looks good. We know that the state of Florida flag is allowed on that same pole, and we know that we have a deviation process that can request more than one pole. We know that although it sets no precedent, we know that this board has previously approved 3 poles as an entrance, an expanded entrance at Water Sound Origins. And they're not bunched together, they are spaced, with the central pole being the one with the United States flag on it. I would suggest for the board's consideration, unless you want to, pull this request down, that we approve 2 flags, second pole to be secondary to the primary pole that's established. I would suggest you may want to, and we would approve the state of Florida flag to be flown.
Okay.
Go ahead and take it that far. If you would wish to redress this and come back with something you want on this third pole, and so we're dealing with a finite issue, because right now we don't need another thing sticking in the air to fly air. So there's nothing else been approved to be there. You deal with that at that point in time through, at the requesting an additional third pole.
Would you consider allowing us to put the pole up and flying a blank white flag so that all the work can be done at one time?
I would not suggest that. That's just me.
Well, someone on this side of the dais has to make a motion one way or the other, so are we heading in a direction?
Mr. Chair,
Well, I guess I try to follow the parliamentary procedure.
Mr. Chairman, before you do that, staff requests that the staff report be entered into the record.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but I failed to do that when I did my
That's
presentation.
fine. It's part of their packet, so we'll
Yeah.
consider that part of the record. Thank you, Tim.
Okay. Oh, and one comment for the public's benefit. You may notice that several of us have computers and iPads up here. The agenda is electronic and the items are electronic, so that's what we're all doing when we're fiddling around. I sat on that side before and thought, what are they doing? We are paying attention. Okay, well, we can go about this, I guess, since we got kind of a couple big topics or big picture items in addition to the deviation request before us. Maybe asking for public comment, which could be on any number of things within the scope of the number of flags and that type of thing. Maybe it is appropriate before we have a motion to ask for some public input. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to offer? Yes, sir. Would you come forward and identify yourself for the record, please?
Hi, my name is John Stevenson. I'm a resident of South Walton County. I live in Duneallen. I've been here for a while and appreciate the hard work that you guys are doing on the board. I also respect the Land Development Code in Chapter 13. I have nothing but good, positive things to say about the building itself. I think they've done a wonderful job in designing the building according to the code and the spirit of blending in with the residential feel that we're trying to get across through the corridor. My concern with the flagpole, and it doesn't have anything to do with size and scope and scale of the building itself. It is a massive building, but if it were 20,000 square feet, 100 or 10 square feet, I just am afraid that if you open up that Pandora's box a floodgate of potential other businesses down the road putting 3 flagpoles up, that what does the corridor look like in the future? And we need to take a step back and think of it from that respect. I think in the exception of Waterstone Origins, while I wasn't here when that was approved, I think you're looking at also the issue of growing attention as it is a real estate development over there. I'm a patriot. I have nothing but positive things about flying the American flag in the state of Florida and whatnot. I just think if you're going to have multiple poles and all that gets proliferated down whatever corridor, scenic Highway 98 being the largest, that it's just going against what we're trying to accomplish in terms of all of a sudden it does fall into the section of signs and under prohibited signs where it's specified under the code on what is allowed. I think that's for good reason. So those are my comments. I would vote against having multiple flagpoles up for those reasons.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other members? Yes, sir. Please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Ken Lloyd. I'm a resident of South Walton in Sandestin. And I'm here to encourage you to follow your own guidelines. Deviations in my history of life would suggest that there's some hardship here. And I don't see a hardship. Your ordinance already says there's up to 3 flags that can be flown on the same mast, wind tolerant, of course. And I would suggest that you stick with that. At some future time, if you want to go through the project of modifying the scenic corridor guidelines, that's another process. But I think you should stick with the rules that you have on this one. The building is beautiful. For commercial building, I think you all did an outstanding job on it. But I have similar concerns as Mr. Stevenson. One grant of variance is one thing, but then that leads to another. And I know we say these don't mean precedents are set, but they really are. So I would suggest that you stick with the rules that exist for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comment from the audience? Yes, sir. Please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
I'm Tim Banfell. I'm the Executive Director for the Scenic Corridor Foundation. And I'm going to echo what we've heard already, is that, it is a beautiful building. And they did stick with codes as far as landscaping and the look of the building. It certainly adds to the Scenic Corridor, and we hope that other businesses will do the same, because, that's perfect. But, in all due respect, I think 1 flagpole is enough. For the same reasons, I don't want to sound like a broken record or beat a dead horse, but it would open the floodgates. It would open a Pandora's box of everyone saying they want to add multiple flagpoles. It's really important that we continue to promote the high standards of development along Highway 98 as well as 331, and I strongly urge this board to, not grant this deviation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Any other?
I would like to ask, when was the watercolors 3 poles approved?
The water sound.
Water sound.
Yeah. I
We'd
think it
have
may
to-
predate any.
All of us.
All of us, yes.
Yeah.
It's been there for some time, so I'd have
5
to guess.
years? Does it predate the corridor guidelines?
No.
No, sir.
So they got a deviation?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
If I recall, I think I was in the audience at that point listening to some things, but I believe they redesigned their whole entrance. They removed large monument pieces and trademark pieces out, so they would not be, they were trying to, I'm not going to use the word clutter, but, you know, it's kind of busy out there. They simplified it.
So that is a compromise. We'll take this out if you allow us to do the
I
flagpole.
mean, it was
Well,
part of a whole package.
Sure.
Yeah, I think just, I believe we've had one other item come before us relating to St. Joe's development of that property, and I want to say they have something like 14,000 feet of frontage.
Sure.
A couple miles of frontage on 98. So
They're a
the
big boy
scale of their
for sure.
request is a little different, as large as y'all's property is.
Absolutely.
It's a different animal. So.
Well, and they have also a different situation in that there's not a building there. It's an entrance to a
Community, yes.
community.
Okay, I think it'd be appropriate, do we have any sentiment on the board that may lead us to an action?
Well, I have a question. Since there's no third flag that we're aware of at this point in time, would you even consider just 2 flagpoles?
I think so. Aesthetically, you know, because we put the American flag right in the center of the building,
Right.
it's not going to be ideal, but we'd certainly do that for now. And as Mr. Waldrop suggested, maybe come back once we figure out a flag, appropriate flag, and talk about that third one at a later date.
I mean, I feel like it's either 3 or 1,
Right.
just aesthetically. And that's what we regulate, aesthetics. And I just really strongly believe that it's either 1 or 3. And 2 wouldn't look right because of one flag being higher hierarchically than the other. And that's just me.
Just since we're putting out our opinions, I agree with what's been said a few times here, that this is a gorgeous building, really well done. The landscaping's really well done. The signage is beautiful. It is appealing from the road. It is very noticeable from the road. So those are great things for both the community and the business. I think that we do have considerations when we look at things that are outside the code, and sometimes even inside the code, depending on how they're proposed, that we have to consider in the long term and across the entire corridor, and the potential for other situations to arise where we would be back in the same position. And so I agree with the statement in and of itself that it should be 1 or 3 for aesthetic reasons. I just think that I am inclined to stay with the code in this case. I'm having a hard time finding a justifying reason to go outside of our code for this particular request.
Okay, well, as the chairman, my job is to try to extract a motion out of one of you all. So, do we have any brave souls willing to propose a motion? And I will throw one thought that I don't think I've heard expressed, but it's since I am now a design professional officially, that civic uses are, in my opinion, deserving of consideration under a deviation like this. Civic uses, there are public civic uses. I don't know how many flagpoles this building has sitting out front, but I'm going to venture a guess to say it's at least 2, if there's not 2 flags flying on one pole. This is a public civic building. There are private civic buildings, churches, things like that. I think the entrance to a large development probably is somewhat of a private civic use. My personal opinion is the proliferation of flags, particularly around holidays when you see dozens and dozens of American flags displayed, I find that to be somewhat distasteful. It's using a flag, our national flag, as decoration, and that, in my opinion, is inappropriate, but that's not what our, actually, I don't know why we allow those displays, but anyway, that's just my opinion. So I'm going to just throw out there that as wonderful as this project has turned out, and I also want to compliment you on the amount of time that you have invested here. You all have invested here in front of the DRB in your attempt to make a wonderful project, and I think that's to be complimented as well. But if it helps tip the balance, I certainly will support a motion to deny the deviation request, because I just don't feel that this particular project, as wonderful as it is, it doesn't rise to the level of necessitating multiple flagpoles. So.
I tend to feel the same way.
Okay, well.
I motion to deny.
Okay.
Second.
Do we have any other comment from the board? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, next item on the agenda is the Culver's Restaurant monument sign.
Yes. This item was continued from the January 5th meeting. They're requesting approval of a monument sign measuring 8 feet by 10 feet, a total of 80 square feet, with the future land use of Coastal Center mixed use. You should have a site plan that we handed out. That's just to show that they're moving the location. The previous location was basically in a hole. They said you wouldn't be able to see it from 98, so they're moving it further west. But that's the only change. Everything else with the sign is exactly the same. They're just moving it a little further west. This sign, after a lot of attempts, is in compliance with Chapter 13 of the Scenic Corridor Guidelines. I would request that the staff report be entered into the record.
It will be. Thank you, Tim.
Okay. All right, does the board have any questions of staff? All right, is the applicant in the audience? Would you like to come forward, sir?
Hello, my name is Lucas Brown. I'm one of the owners of the Culvers. Be happy to answer any questions about the signs.
Okay. Thank you. Do you have any questions of the applicant?
Technical question again, not for us, for applicant. Is this blue on this sign the same color as the blue awnings on the building?
I'm not positive about that. I can get that answered for you. I believe it is. It's supposed to be. We requested it to be, yes.
Okay. Is that a positive answer?
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, we haven't taken
We're trying to see if it goes with the building. That's
Okay.
one
In
of
all
our-
fairness, we haven't taken possession of the sign yet. I haven't seen it.
Okay.
So it's...
That's just one of our things, is to judge whether it matches the architecture of the building.
Right.
So that's why I asked.
Absolutely.
We can never tell colors from
It's
our
certainly
renderings.
it's certainly spec to be. I can tell you that.
Okay.
I don't know if it's appropriate or not. I did pass your restaurant. I had to go to Pensacola or Gulf Breeze yesterday, and you guys are stretching from Panama City all the way over down 98. Good job.
Well, thank you very much. One of my co-owners is actually my cousin, owns the Navarre location, but the Panama City is a different owners group.
We're glad to see. We're glad to see the brand here.
Well, thank you very much.
I have a question of staff with regard to what Lee mentioned just then. When we approved the awning colors or window treatment colors, were they in line with
Building color.
the building colors?
Yes, but they weren't in line with their corporate colors because it's called Culver's Blue. But they went with an approved Munsell color.
Okay.
And of course,
I had never seen that color, and I recognized it last night in that horrible weather. Come back and said, "Whoa, boy, that's a blue."
It's bright.
yeah, but it's not their corporate blue, but it is.
Well, I do remember y'all coming before the board previously and agreeing to do whatever. It would have had to have changed the color.
They picked out an approved color, which isn't, I guess, way off, but it's not exactly their corporate blue.
That's correct.
Is the sign the same blue?
That's what
we
they
asked
did.
that question
It
and
is.
you said
Well,
you're not really sure,
I
right?
can tell you it's expect to be.
Okay.
I'm certainly expecting it to be. We don't have it yet.
Okay.
It's still being
Because on
fabricated.
here, it looks like it's a navy blue, and if I'm not mistaken, the awnings are more like your shirt.
The awnings are, yeah, they're not quite this light, but they're certainly brighter than a navy. There's no question about that. Yeah.
It's impossible to tell colors from our
That's true.
renderings
That's
and
true.
on the computer and all that jazz.
Okay. Where are we headed with this? Do you have any members of the public that would like to comment? For the record, there are none.
The signed copy, it says is white vinyl, reflective vinyl. I've just never, is that a normal, I've just never seen that on one of our projects. I guess that's a normal material that's used.
Have you used that before?
Well, this is my first restaurant, so
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I've just never seen it. I don't,
Is there a signage
So I'm
version
seeing
of
white
it?
polycarbonate. Is there another?
it's the signed copy itself.
Okay.
On the rendering, it's 3 down. Signed copy is white, reflective vinyl.
Okay.
Are you familiar with that?
Is there a signage person in the audience?
He left.
I don't know.
He left?
Yeah.
Okay. Trying, fishing.
The company that we hired for the design of this sign is out of Chicago. So I don't know if there are any local installers here, but the designers certainly are not.
Is this sign lit? I mean, it's probably right here in front of
It's
you.
right there now.
Exterior.
From the exterior.
Okay.
In the little in the ground
Yes, ma'am.
shine up lights.
Okay.
Right. Good to go.
Yeah, white reflective vinyl does.
Just never seen that. Should we ask staff if they have any concerns about that complying?
It might be helpful to read the staff. Would y'all happen to have the portion of the code available regarding the material for the copy?
He's showing me one of the other graphics are showing that they're reverse channel letters to give you the halo effect.
Okay.
On the monument?
Mm-hmm, yes.
Oh, so that's not what we have.
I don't know if he's got a different, see, this thing went through several iterations, and this is the final iteration that you have in front of you. But he's got a graphic that's showing its reverse channel letters.
That would be a whole lot better.
But I'm not sure, I mean, we can only go by what's in your packet, because this is the last iteration that they provided. And I may have overlooked this because there were so many iterations that we were going through. I mean, I think what that is designed to do is reflect the headlights. You know, as you're driving by the restaurant, your headlights will reflect the name, Culver's. Whether that's an improved material, it's a different story. I mean, I was looking at it's an aluminum cabinet, which is an approved material under our code.
If the sign is lit, I mean, what are we looking at?
Externally illuminated, which means
You know, if it's already lit, the headlights are not gonna make any difference.
Yeah.
Could be reflected.
But they might be reflecting the light that is
Externally
lighting
illuminated, which
it.
means we have ground light shining.
The reason
And
I
there's the ground.
was asking about the language in the code is I recall there is something referring to, it may be, the word may be reflective, but there's language in the code that describes things that are designed to draw excessive attention.
Yeah, what are we
Negative.
looking at?
In a negative sense, yes.
Well, the code might also
We got
regulate the
Mac.
materials that we're using on the signs.
So,
Yeah.
Use light reflective battery.
Yeah, it does say, light sources to illuminate signs shall neither be visible from any street right-of-way or cause glare hazardous to pedestrians or vehicle drivers entering public streets. Signs shall not have light reflecting backgrounds, but may use light reflecting lettering.
Oh, okay, so that covers that.
that's my
That'd be
question.
basically
Okay.
the same as your stop signs and your, since it's exterior illuminated, instead of interior illuminated.
Look it up.
That's never come up before, but it's right.
I've never seen it before. That's why I was asking. I've never seen it. It may be
I
out
remembered
there
something about
somewhere.
reflective. I didn't realize it was,
like-
backgrounds are okay and letterings, or backgrounds are not okay and lettering is okay. All right. Does that help us? Anybody willing to make a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We have any further discussion on the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes care of Culver's. Next up is Alvin's Island Monument sign.
Yes, this item was also continued from the January 5th meeting. This is a request for a monument sign measuring 6 feet by 13 feet for a total of 78 square feet with a future land use of Coastal Center. This is the location down there next to Dollar General and Scenic Gulf Drive. The application has the following deficiencies. The sign copy area exceeds the maximum allowed by the code. The code allows for 28 square feet. This is at 36.3. I'm sorry, 35%. This is at 36.3%. There's no pictures of the building with so there's no way to determine whether it complements the architecture of the building because you don't know what the building looks like based on the graphic. Same way with must reinforce the architectural character of the building. It can't be determined because they don't show what the building looks like. I've been unable to contact the sign company because they're not the applicant. The applicant is actually an electrical contractor, so I don't have their number. I don't have any information to contact them, so all I can say is this sign is not in compliance with Chapter 13.
Staff, if we were to have a motion to continue this to the next meeting, by doing so, we don't have to meet any advertising requirements, right? Okay, so.
If we continue it to a date certain.
And that's fine.
Is the applicant present? Anybody representing the applicant present?
But see, I still have no way of contacting the...
We already continued this because of that at the last.
Is there any limitation on how many times we can continue something?
No.
No.
It's up to you guys.
Typically, we do it 3 times, then we table it, but there's nothing in our code that says you can only do it 3 times and then you table it, but that's usually...
So what would need to change between now and next meeting for you to be able to get these folks engaged?
Well, all he has to do is...
No. I mean, for you to get in contact with them. Because right now you're unable to even get in contact with someone is what I'm hearing you say.
I don't know.
So that you can communicate about this.
Because I've contacted the applicant on several occasions saying, do you have a number? Do you have, a website, something so I can contact these people? Now, they do have the name on here.
We got an email address. Bucks Electrical.
Yeah, that's the the electrical contractor.
That's who he's
Isn't
been
he the
contacting.
client?
He's not the sign contractor.
But
I mean,
he's
I don't
the
know why they did
applicant?
it that way, but I mean,
Who's the
weird.
applicant?
you look at
Him.
the application,
They
and the
let-
application shows Charles Hood. He's an electrical contractor.
And that's who you've been contacting,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not getting any response back.
No.
And
I mean, if the project's moving forward, at some point, they're going to want to avoid having to resubmit and go through all the advertising and another application fee and et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah, because if
I
if
just,
this,
in order to move the agenda along, they're not present, we don't have a complete packet. I think the most polite thing we can do is continue it.
right,
Motion
but
to
also
continue.
the
Okay.
sign is oversized, which would, would be denied unless they come in and apply with a smaller sign.
All right.
Okay, well, we've got a motion on the floor to continue. Do we have a second?
Second.
Keep
right.
trying. I don't know.
Okay.
Weird.
Any further comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And just to be clear, we're moving that.
Oh, to March 2nd.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Tim. Next item up is the village door at Seascape Amendment.
yes, this item was also continued from the January 5th meeting. This is a request to approve, requesting approval to add a covered patio, a daiquiri bar, metal awnings. Actually, this changed a little bit. They're adding, we changed the advertising. The advertising's right, but I guess because this was continued, I didn't change the staff report. They're also asking for a second floor. When this first came through, when Seascape Town Center came through, this building was approved as a one-story building. So they were expecting, well, I don't know if it was going to be more than one tenant, but this is going to be one tenant in the building. The Village Door has bought this building. It's going to be, the only thing in this building is going to be the Village Door, and they want a second story. So they're asking for a covered patio, daiquiri bar, metal awnings, and a second story. And from reviewing the application, it is in compliance. They're using the same colors that were approved previously for Seascape Town Center. They're using a combination of metal and fabric awnings. But in terms of the scenic corridor requirements, it's in compliance. And I'll entertain any questions you may have.
Okay, Tim, if you wouldn't mind, with regard to the items that this board considers, can you list the items that we're...
Well, the building's completely changing from what was originally approved. So you're still looking at the aesthetics.
I mean, in other words, are all the materials that are included in the new configuration of the building, are they the same materials that we considered in our first review? In other words, fabric colors, building materials, et cetera. It's the same batch of materials, just in a different building form.
Well, I think the materials changed, but they're approved materials. There's nothing outside of what's not allowed, because I don't think these awnings were on there before. So there's metal and there's fabric awnings, which is allowable. You look at color, but they're using the same colors that were previously approved.
Is there a second story already built on this building?
Well, it's under construction currently.
Okay, so if we would say no to that, what would happen?
I'm not sure, because they're out there building it as we speak. Because the building, I don't.
Well, it's a nice
That was a
theoretical
good-
question.
that was a good question,
It's a
wasn't it?
theoretical question, but I'm not sure on what basis we might do that.
Well, and the building permit for the second story was approved. I mean, they are building according to their building permit.
So that's not our purview.
How that happens is a different story.
Do you guys want to hear from the applicant?
I have a quick
Yes, I think
question
that'd
for
be...
staff first.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay, yeah, sure. One more question for staff?
The green and white striped awning, fabric awning, was that something that was in our original, the submittal that we originally approved?
I don't think, the applicant would know better, but I don't think originally there was awnings on that building. When it was a one-story building, I don't believe there was any awnings, so that's an add-on. But they're telling me that that was a color that was previously approved.
They are telling you?
Yes. They're telling me that this was, they didn't change any of the colors from the previous approvals.
I don't remember that.
And they provided, they provided the colors.
Definitely not.
That's why I asked the question I asked a second ago. I'm trying to understand.
That's the only thing I'll see that's.
Do you have any pictures of
Different.
the original, what came through here?
Yeah, that's in the.
No, this is just what they provided to us.
There's. I've opened too many things at once. But,
I don't have anything on the
Yeah,
original.
there's an original DRB approval
Okay.
in the packet.
Yeah, they did, I'm sorry, they did provide both to show this is what was approved, this is what we're requesting. They did show that.
Original approval, okay. Sorry.
I don't always go through these inserts, so sometimes there's stuff in here that I'm unaware of because they turn in the inserts and that gets put in the books and handed out. I don't always see it. I'm supposed to see it, but I don't always see it.
This is nothing like,
So let me see if I can get my arms around this.
I don't see
The Design Review Board, and this is a follow-up on David's question. The Design Review Board is supposed to approve design concepts for
Yeah,
construction.
the aesthetics of the building,
Okay.
color.
And we did that.
Yes.
Okay. And that now, we're asking to review a modification of what we had already approved.
Correct.
Okay. And nothing else has been changed other than they're adding
The covered patio, daiquiri bar, they're adding the awnings, and they're
the
adding a second
second
story.
floor.
Yes.
And they're already under construction with this second floor.
Yes.
And just to be clear, I think that there were other buildings in the development that had two
Yeah, there was
stories.
four, I think.
So
I think
this
there
is
was a
not-
total of 4 buildings that was approved.
right, but it wasn't in context. I mean,
But what's been approved is not what is being built.
That's correct. That's why we're here tonight.
And just as in comparing the original building that was considered and approved and the modified version that's currently being built, and I think this is a fair statement, architecturally, in terms of the building massing, the fact that it's 2 stories, I don't see anything controversial or that should be of any significant concern to us. I think the awning, the configuration of the awning and the I'll call it the color, the striping of the awning, I do think is something that we all need to make sure we're understanding what we're looking at. So if everybody's okay with it, I believe the applicant's here. If we could get a quick presentation and explanation from them, we might be able to hone in on what it is that what's in play in terms of discussion.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes,
I
sir.
just want to read the part under awnings because if you agree with the way I read this, it wouldn't require necessarily a deviation if it wasn't, if it was a different color. I've got to find that section.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I think during the building permit review process, the shape of this building changed.
Yes.
It didn't get any larger in gross square footage, but the shape changed at the building permit level. When we discovered that on the planning side and the request to add the awnings, we recognized that the DRB had not seen this view, and that's why we requested this come back before you, to make sure that the DRB had approved the aesthetic appearance of the building.
Absolutely. Yeah, understood. Thank you, Matt.
Okay, what it says is color is to complement the building. And it says no solid vinyls or plastics are permitted. So I think as long as you as a board feel that it does, it wouldn't require a deviation. But if you feel that it doesn't, then I think it would. If it's not one of the approved colors and you all think, well, this really doesn't complement the building, then I think you would be in.
Tim, what section are you reading from?
It's 130302.
Okay, this is 98. Finally. I'm like killing myself up here trying to figure out where
Yes,
this building is.
130302.
You're not the only one.
All right.
I'm like,
It says no interior illuminations of awnings is permitted. Canopies are to be hung or column mounted. Colors to complement the building. No solid vinyls or plastics are permitted.
And I'm going to say this just so that the applicant, when they're making their presentation, they might be able to address this. What jumps out at me is that the architecture of this development is a fairly clean, somewhat blocky, a little bit classically oriented, perhaps architecture, and the awnings almost have a split personality. We've got the awning on the upper floor, which I think is generally in keeping with the architecture in terms of the kind of the larger brackets under it and the light fixtures and things like that. But then there's a lot of what I would describe as kind of Victorian-looking scroll work on the railings, and I do not find that to be in keeping with the architecture. So, you know, the green and white is, you know, is fairly traditional awning type. So I don't have so much of an issue with that as I do that the columns and railings and decoration on the awnings are really. I guess I could be convinced. I don't know. Lourdes, do you have any strong opinions about that?
I'm having, I don't know, for some reason my iPad isn't giving me the proposed revisions.
Do y'all have any, I'm assuming that y'all are the applicants?
You see this?
Yep, okay. Do y'all have any renderings with you?
I have for some reason.
Yes, sir. Okay. Everybody okay with me inviting the applicants up?
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Yeah, let me see.
And if I can just, before you start, just an orientation question. Is this awning side of the building, the green and white awning side, facing 98? Is that where anyone, staff, applicant? I can't figure it out on my tiny, tiny renderings and elevations. I can't.
Yes.
That's it?
It is, Lee.
I know.
This is the two-story portion.
Okay, that's,
Yeah.
This is the large canopy.
Okay,
Well,
great.
here's Mac's book.
okay, thanks.
And you can figure 98's up. Okay, and just as a formality, if one of you could introduce yourself for the record.
Bill Pope, W Development.
Right, I
I'm
know.
representing the tenant, and I think we can point out the changes that were approved before, and we can improve, and also point out what we're trying to add to the building.
Okay.
First of all, where do you want me to go? Go ahead.
Well, I'm Jay Nettles, and I represent the developer, and I just wanted to clarify that there were really two issues here, and they were originally separate, and then it was decided that they should be combined together. So the first issue is the change from one story to two story, which is under construction now, underway. We did. The building permit did reflect the building as it's built currently, but it was pointed out to us that we should have come back to the DRB and have the DRB approve it. So that's the first issue, and yes.
Let me, because I'd love to make y'all comfortable. I don't want to make you squirm at all. Is it permissible for us to deal with this as two separate actions, Madam Attorney?
The story, second story versus.
Yeah. In other words, right now, what and pardon me for interrupting, but Mr. Nettles has just described that from the applicant's perspective, there may be two issues. One is let's get approval for a building that's under construction, I'm sure at great expense. We don't want any showstoppers. I haven't heard anybody express any concern about the configuration of the building. Is it okay for us to dispose of that with one action and then come back to the other stuff?
That's perfectly acceptable, but I would encourage you to let the applicant finish his presentation if you have anything else to say, Mr. Nettles, about that matter.
Well, and then the other segment is the tenant improvements that are proposed at this point that you know, we as the developer are okay with those, but that's a separate issue which Bill Pope is going to address.
Mr. Nettles, are you comfortable with the board dealing with the 1-story versus 2-story first?
Yes.
Okay.
Our presentation was based on that.
Okay.
Segregation. Just to start off, I don't think these are in your packet.
Yes, sir. You can provide them to the clerk.
These are photos of what's actually been built. And what you previously approved that's been built is the white color has been approved. The anodized, clear anodized storefront has been approved. The awnings that you previously approved, we're asking for a change on that. We're asking for a change on the metal work. We're asking for a change on, and we can go through those changes. But the 2-story building, just really quickly, and the architects here, if you want further explanation, but the 2-story was about an 8,500, 1-story, you approved an 8,500 square foot 1-story, and I'm just using approximate numbers. It's still 8,500 square feet, but it's 2 stories. And what you're going to see there is we're the end cap, we're the closest. Mm-hmm. This is 98 up here, and what you're looking at is the shopping center right here, and the building that we're referring to is in pink right here.
I have zero problem with the second story.
Yeah, if we want to go ahead and dispose of that, anyone want to make a motion to that effect?
I make a motion to approve the second story.
Second.
Okay, we have any further discussion or questions? Staff, you have any concerns about that motion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
All right.
Floor is yours again, sir.
All right, let me show you what, this is the building right here, this is the DRB line right here, this is 98 up here. What we're going to be looking at is the north elevation of the building that faces 98, and also the east elevation that you can see from 98. And we've got renderings and different things to show you. What we're adding, this needs a little more work in here. This is the building that's being built right now. And all these patios have been approved previously. We're not changing those at all. But what we are doing is, on those patios, we're adding a bar here and a bar here. The bar consists of a brick base or brick and a concrete top. And we'll show you those materials. So again, this is the east elevation, and this is looking from 98. So we'd be looking from 98 right here. This is the elevation as you would view it from 98. This is the north side, and this is the west side, or the east side of the building. I'm going to show you how these materials work in a minute, but I just want, and the bars are located here, and the bars are located here. This, just so you know, this is based, the architects based this on a New Orleans theme, which the famous store, Mr. Weiner, is a part of that, of course. Again, this is just looking from the parking lot, and this is looking from 98. I think there's some clear drawings that I want to show you real quick. These are the two elevations again. This is the north side, and this is the east side. And what we're proposing is a mix, a metal canopy here, where a fabric canopy stripe comes into that. The stripe has not been approved, the metal has not been approved. That's before you tonight. And the same thing on this side. It's consistent on both sides.
So you have the cloth canopy on both sides?
Right, I didn't do your question.
The cloth canopy on both sides?
Yes.
Let's see that.
Well, meaning it goes around the corner? Is that what you mean?
On both sides, he says.
Excuse
Yeah.
me. Well, it goes around this corner right here.
But it's the same
Oh,
canopy.
okay,
It would be
the
seen
two
on the
sides
left side,
on
but
90
the majority of it
degrees.
is on the 98 side.
Okay, okay.
So is it just a quirk of the rendering, or are there what I'll call the upper canopy is the green and white fabric? Is the lower canopy that kind of wraps that?
That's correct. The lower canopy is the metal canopy.
Is metal, okay.
And that's the awning over the bar area. And part of that metal canopy is then fabric over that.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's another fabric canopy right above the second story windows, more of a sunscreen.
Okay, and what color is that canopy?
That's the same as the stripe.
Oh, is it? Because it's not shown as a stripe.
No, it's the metal canopy. It's metal.
It's metal.
Metal.
It's
Okay.
a metal, it's a
That
metal awning.
adenized.
It's not a real canopy.
Atomized or whatever.
Okay.
Okay, then what you see is a series of the scroll work. Of course, we have a premise railing here, but then you see the New Orleans style scroll work all through here. It forms the columns for the canopy, and it also goes across and forms sort of an archway into each portico. So, just to summarize where we're asking for the two bars. We're asking for the ironwork, which is green, matches the green in the canopy, in the awning part of it. The storefront has already been approved. That's the clear anodized aluminum, and it's in part of the building you just approved, the two-story building. The awning itself is striped green and white, and then the metal standing seam is a slate gray. That's the metal, and those are the changes. What was previously approved was a black canopy for the entire project, and so we're varying from that.
Okay. I have a question, Sydney. I'm sorry,
Sure.
I'm picking on
No,
you
that's
this
okay.
evening. For sake of trying to figure out a potential way forward, if we were to take another step forward and could we approve the configuration of the canopies in the sense of the area, the volume they enclosed, all that type of stuff, but withhold approval of the green and white stripe and the scroll work? And where I'm going with this is the potential that we've done this before with applicants where they've come to a second meeting and made a presentation of an alternate option once they've heard our comments. And I want this project, I mean, it's obviously under construction, and I can understand the urgency of being confident that they've got the square footage, the number of seats, and all that type of stuff. Just from the comments I've heard, I'm sensing that it's really the details that we're
I would agree.
a little bit of concern about.
That would be an acceptable way to
The
move
two
forward if
details
you'd
you
like.
mentioned are my only concerns.
They're my concerns too, because I don't see how they married it to the building with the anodized,
But I'm fine with the
you know,
configuration.
golf front, but I mean, the window front, anodized metal, it's really modern versus the filigree of the ironwork. It just, to me, it just doesn't marry. It doesn't get married.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, go ahead.
The anodized part of the building it was supposed to recede. We're not trying to outline the windows in a color or a dark. What we're trying to do is really outline the canopy. It might help if you have ideas that or things you don't like. I'd sort of like to know why, and then we might be able to come back and change it. But
Well, I'll throw out there that the architecture, the building itself, if you strip off the canopies and just look at the massing, the fenestration, the size and scale of the building, even the way that the sort of very simple cornice is on the building. If you look at that, that's a very understated kind of architecture. Mm-hmm. And then I certainly don't have any problem with either that architecture or the concept of filigree and scroll work and that kind of stuff, but it's just one wrapped around the other. I think everybody up here has had the same sense that it's just a mismatch. And so
remember, the base building is the base building. It's meant to be decorated. The signs are meant to stand out from the white. Okay. This is an end cap, and it's seen from 98, and it's very important to the tenant that he is seen from 98. And the scroll work we would certainly look at something else, but I think the canopies are really pretty straightforward and modern and contemporary.
I don't have a problem with the canopies.
Okay.
My problem is the scale of the ironwork versus the scale of the windows. I mean, these are really huge windows, huge proportions, and they're not the New Orleans proportions of windows, which are like very small.
Put it very bluntly, there's clearly steel and concrete spanning over these windows. The rest of the detailing is not of that.
Well, let me narrow down to what you're saying. Then it basically narrows down to the scroll work, the decorative scroll work.
Yes, I think so.
And I would say, can I add one thing to this? Because to bring it back more to the code and the intent of the guidelines, many times we've had projects come before us, and I'm addressing the board as well, so I'm looking, where there were several different building colors, and it got busy looking. And to me, when I look at this, because we've got different styles, we've got different awnings and canopies and all that, it creates that same kind of effect for me. Just as a non-design professional, I'm trying to kind of put this in a non-design professional's terms to complement what you guys are saying. I think it does anyway.
Yeah.
Is that when I mean the stripes, the different. I think if the ironwork looked the same from the top floor to the bottom, that would go a long way if it was the same style. And I do think that striped awning really stands out and is a which I could see that the applicant would want that, or the designer, or the developer, but it just doesn't go.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you an example. If the building were brick, I'm not suggesting to make the building brick.
No.
But I'm just
Right.
I want to make my point. If the building were brick, we're talking about a traditional material. It would have the effect of making the underlying architecture and the rest of this work together.
But I also think that if the columns that are holding the canopy, instead of being filigree and competing with the panels behind, which are also filigree, I mean, if the columns were to be simpler and just columns like in New Orleans that they have just steel columns, I think that would help a lot without the filigree on the top, and it just clean it all that out, and then it would open up for your panels to have more of an appeal in terms of hierarchy. They would be first, and then that way simplifying also the canopy at the top and the window. Maybe it doesn't round up, maybe it's square to follow the building, but I mean, I see something like that to clean it up a little bit, but don't take everything from your design. I think it's because right now everything is competing with everything, and everything has the same hierarchy. There's no main focus and secondary focus and third focus. It's just everything is competing with each other.
Well, I think when you say everything, we're back to the grill work on that, but the canopies are fairly contemporary and do go with the building. So, I mean, I would look at probably going back to my client and suggesting that we change the grill work, but can we get the canopies, the bars, the other areas?
Yeah, we're in a unique situation here that the next meeting, March 2nd, is just right around the corner, so it's not, and we struggle very much with trying to get folks through these processes quickly and give you clear direction, and so I think we've successfully navigated this kind of issue before and again, tonight, what I'm suggesting, if it's the will of the board, would be to approve as many pieces of this as we can, so that what you come back with is a really small, kind of a tiny package of information.
I agree with that approach.
Yeah, and I think the other, again, if it's the will of the board, what we would do is just say, this is kind of the base option, and if y'all could bring back a second option for us to consider, I think we're all willing to commit to make a decision at the next meeting. We don't want to string you along.
No, and we're willing to be at that next meeting too.
Okay.
Have something.
I also think that maybe the canopy, and I think the stripe is like jetting out, sort of like calling itself so hard, and maybe it needs to be just all green. And if the green is within our color guide, I think it would clean it up, and it wouldn't compete with the awnings that are the metal awnings that are all a simple color.
I do have an opinion on that because we've done a lot of awnings, a great deal on 30A and others, and we found that a solid color is just massive. It's like a big blob. So the stripe really helps define it a little bit better, and we would like to keep the stripe, but again, it's your discretion.
Our goal is not to sit here and design.
Design the building for you.
No, and again, we want to be seen for 98. I mean, this is where you guys come in. I mean, we do want to be seen. So.
Yep. Right. Okay. Well, do you feel like you have a sense of what it is we're honed in on, our concern, and what we'll try to do is make a motion to kind of get as much of this approved as we can.
The grill work. The railings are straightforward. They're just up and down railings like you would put anywhere else. But we certainly go back and look at the grill work. Again, I think it would give me some guidance if you approve certain items tonight, like the canopies, the bars. What else do we have? Everything but the ironwork's already. I mean, the storefront's already approved. So everything but the ironwork is what you're looking at.
Madam Attorney, could we, if we had a motion that moved the approval of the configuration of the canopies, the materials of the bar, but withheld approval or continued the consideration of the canopy color, the canopy material, and the, I'd like to use a word like details that would include the shape of the column, the filigree of the column, that type of thing. Is that a...
Can't we just say everything excluding the columns?
We're calling it, on our drawings, it's called the ironwork. So everything...
Okay. It was labeled ironwork. Okay.
Yeah.
So we would exclude the color of the ironwork and the color and configuration of the ironwork and canopies. Would that...
No, the canopies, I mean, I would say, I would approve the canopies, except for the awning and the
ironwork.
No, the ironwork, all of the ironwork, and the I would say the canopy that's cloth.
Okay.
So that we can, I don't know, multicolored, yeah.
Mr. Pope, I mean, I guess tell me about your project. Is it okay if the board approves the configuration? Will that help you move forward before
That would
March
help,
2nd?
but again, I'll take one more last fight, Lord, is for the green and striped canopy. I really think that we'll look at other colors if that's what you want us to do, but I would hope that we could get the green and white stripe approved tonight.
Well, the thing is, I mean, I'm still thinking that it just calls too much attention to itself, and maybe there might be another pattern of green and white that might sort of like make it blend it more. Maybe I don't know whether the scale of it is or not. Or
I'm just going to throw out there, and not to sort of divide us on up here, but the green and white canopies are almost like a seersucker suit. If you really look at a seersucker suit, they're kind of strange looking, but because they're traditional, they work.
Right.
And a green and white canopy is a traditional type of canopy. These are, I think they've got the dimension of the stripes. I think they're ideal. I mean, they're pretty big.
They are nice. I mean, I'm not going to complain about that. I just think that. And
if I ignore the ironwork, the green and white canopy, I don't have a problem. That's not a mismatch to the architecture. What feels like a mismatch to the architecture is the ironwork of the lower canopy. And I feel like if we give the applicant a sec, bring us an alternate, and then we'll.
Okay, let's compromise.
Okay.
And Bill, I think that I'm looking at the top canopy.
Mm-hmm.
The filigree on the top canopy and the curves on the top canopy. I think they could be more rectangular.
You're talking about the configuration.
The configuration on it. Yeah. And in my opinion, that's my opinion. And that would simplify it and not compete with the architecture, that second story. And then in terms of the filigree on the bottom, then it would be all the ironwork.
We're considering the ironwork on the second story part of the ironwork.
Right.
Yeah, but you want us to look at the configuration of that canopy also?
Yes, yes.
We can do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's my only problem with the canopies besides
So
the,
it's the ironwork and the upper canopy?
Yeah.
Okay, and if you, that would help us if you could give us at least a nod on the rest of it, then we'll know what to put
Okay.
together.
Lotus, are you ready to make a motion? Are you?
Okay, I make a motion to approve the first floor canopy, the, let's see, what do you call the?
bars?
The bars and the fabric canopy, the green and white. And we want to see another proposal of the for the columns and all the metalwork.
Ironwork.
Ironwork.
So I guess you'd like to continue consideration of the columns and ironwork
Yes.
Yes.
to March the 2nd?
And the second and the top canopy.
Okay, well, is,
We can't really do March
Yep.
2nd.
March
She's
2nd.
doing the books tomorrow.
I thought we'd be continued. Why
Yeah,
would-
if they come to the meeting with a presentation,
Yeah.
Well, they'd have to hand it out.
that's fine.
Is that okay with the board?
Fine with me.
Yeah.
We're dealing with
We just-
professionals.
We just can't
And we've narrowed it
pre-do your
down.
books or your tablets or whatever.
I mean, we've narrowed it
Oh,
down.
no,
It's not like
That's
there's gonna be a
okay.
whole
we
bunch
get you inserts and everything too. I
That
mean,
okay?
That's not,
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
we get the inserts and the details to you, because then we can just concentrate on that.
Absolutely.
If the rest is approved, that will help
Yeah.
us.
Yep. All right, we have a motion. Did,
Second.
We'll just add it to the agenda.
okay, staff, did y'all capture the motion? We have a motion and Tom seconded.
So it's an approval of the first floor canopy, the bars, the fabric canopy,
Yeah.
and then a motion to continue consideration of the columns and ironwork to March 2nd.
And upper
Ironwork
canopy.
And the upper canopy.
And upper canopy.
Okay.
Okay, so that's Lourdes made the motion, Tom seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
very much for
Appreciate
y'all's
the
time.
comments.
Okay, last item on the agenda is the Point Washington Apartments entrance.
Good evening. This also was continued from the January 5th. If you recall, on that meeting, you approved the wall and asked for the detail of the landscaping to be cleaned up. So I directed the applicant to kind of make it as simple as possible. I believe the applicant has. As you see on your inserts on LS 100, the first page, it's showing the planning scheme. On page 2, it's showing the planning scheme, the part that's being considered inside the 400-foot scenic corridor. And then I asked the applicant to use the plant symbol along with the plant list. I can assure you the plant list that was approved that's in the current code, everything is in it. We worked out the square footage on the front page that met the requirements. And as you see, they continue on with their landscaping beyond that 400 feet that wouldn't necessarily be considered today. So with that, based on the information provided, the proposed project meets the minimum technical requirements for the US Highway 98, US Highway 331 Scenic Corridor Design Standards contained in Chapter 13 of the Walton County Land Development Code. So staff would recommend consideration of the landscaping, and at the next meeting you will see the applicant's actual signs. Are there any questions?
No?
Nope.
I hope that this made it clear. I couldn't think of any other way to simplify it than what we did.
Totally clear.
It's really simple. Thanks.
It's
No
exactly
problem.
what we
Thank you.
needed.
Okay. Do we have, is the applicant present?
Yes.
Okay.
And before I turn it over to the applicant, I'd like to enter the staff report in the record.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have let you guys know. Staff's going to be doing that from now on, just making sure it's clear on the record that everything in your packet is part of the record.
Just a quick comment. You previously approved the wall before, and we clarified the landscaping the best to our ability now. I think it's clear, and we meet the plant list for Walton County, and we would ask your approval for that tonight. And we'll be back on March 2nd with the signage that goes in those areas.
Okay, and the record, of course, will reflect that I believe the staff report shows that all the requirements that are applicable are met.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, Lourdes motioned in multiple seconds.
And the whole rest
Pick
of the
one,
floor.
yes. Any further discussion among the board? Any comments from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Off to the planning meeting.
You guys have fun.
Just a reminder, we're going to have
Can't even
a
get
workshop
back all the way back to Rosemary.
at the next meeting,
Yes.
the March 2nd meeting, we're going to have a workshop.
On signage and lighting,
Ah.
right?
Okay.
Just, so be prepared when you come next week.
Yeah,
It's gonna be longer.
What's that?
Next week, we're having a workshop on signage and lighting.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Okay.
Cool.
Sorry about that, got distracted. Any further business? Oh, yes, okay.
Hate
Go ahead,
to do
Lee.
it, but
Floor's
just
yours.
a quick question.
Yep.
This is not a project on our agenda. The past one, the motorsports place next to the Panhandle Equipment Rental place, which I have a question about that. I've had for months and months and months. They have a sign in the front part, a large part of their front window that is only visible at night when it's illuminated from behind. Is that legal to have a sign in a window? It is actually affixed to the window.
Yes, but it's a temporary sign. If you look at chapter 13, you can't have it permanently. It falls under temporary signage.
So how long can a temporary sign be there? And why would they invest a lot of money, I think they did, in that sign if it were only going to be temporarily there?
They didn't even come to us. I didn't even
I'm
know
sure.
it was there.
How do you prove
If it's
it?
only illuminated at night, I didn't even know it was there.
Yeah, it's only illuminated at night. I can't see it if it's not illuminated from behind. It just sounds like a lot of code avoidance measures.
Our secretary believes it's 60 days for a temporary sign.
Okay, so if it's gone for longer than
On
60
90
days?
Well, actually, this is a little bit, here it is.
Don't you have to get a permit for a temporary sign though?
Yes, you do.
Something's not right with it.
Here it is. Temporary storefront signage inside the storefront window is permitted, provided that signage is limited to a 2-week period, a maximum of 6 times per year, is limited to a maximum of 2 windows per tenant, does not exceed 25% of the individual window area or a height of 2 feet and a width of 4 feet, whichever is less, and is professionally printed, painted, or constructed, hand-lettered cardboard, or paper. Temporary signs are not permitted. So it doesn't actually fall under the 60-day. Some are 60. This is 2 weeks at a time, 6 times per year.
Do they have to get permitted?
Yes, it would require the temporary sign. So each time they did it six times, they would have to get a temporary permit.
Well, I guess it's not, you're telling us it's not permitted, and it covers like, I think it's actually bigger than their buildings. It fills the
Really?
entire, like 2/3 of their frontage windows.
25% is the limit on a window.
Yes, 25%.
That's limited to 2 weeks.
2 weeks, 6 times per year.
Tim, could you inform code enforcement about
Yes.
that?
I think it is trying to get Tim's attention. I think it is a case.
Well, I'll talk to code tomorrow.
Thank you.
Any other items to come before the board? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, do we have a second? All in favor?
Yay.
Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Wow.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
It's 10-minute turn.
How about that?
All right.
You think, you haven't seen the traffic yet?
I'm going nowhere.
Oh, okay.
I have 4 lanes to travel on going north now.
There's some,
For a little while.
some of the.
That's all I need, is just a little while, but first exit.
It's like the Indy 500.
Well,
Yeah, I
the
bet.
speed limit signs don't mean anything.
Well, even if you're driving 55, you're gonna get run over, but the speed limit sign is 45.
Aaron, you need help?